All right, so another awesome case study. We have Justin Hudie out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Justin, why don't you kind of just give us a quick intro, just rough complexion of your team, when you got into real estate, just a couple minutes to kind of get the conversation started.
So I got into real estate in 2005. It was a great couple. I got into the summer of 2005, and it was a great year in real estate. And then market obviously changed on us. And independent agent for a long time. I feel like I was really lucky. I did a lot of business for me. I think the most I ever did alone was 47 or 49 transactions. And that was like no lead systems. That was just cold calling, hitting it hard. And I was hitting it hard. Like I was working really hard. But as far as the last couple of years, I was at a point in the business where, I hate to say this, but the reason that I don't have another child on this earth is because of this business. And I remember saying, like, let's have another child. And my wife looked at me saying, you got to be kidding me. Like, you're never home, And that's a pain point for me. And I remember thinking to myself, I either got to get out of this business or I got to figure out a way to really make it work for me. You and I met. We went through some pain points, things that needed to change, but our business had grown, and we closed 163 transactions this year. The way we're set up is I have 3 staff members. I have 4 agents, and we're doing good.
Yeah.
We're
So
leaning in.
I remember the moment, because I remember I left this when we first met. I want you to kind of talk about, what did you want to achieve when we first started working together? But I remember the moment distinctly. Like it was the reason I went to this event, looking back on the event, because I wasn't really welcome in this group anymore. It was just a weird time for me. But talk about when we first met and really, like, where were you at in the business? And what did you want to achieve when we first started working together?
So what was interesting is in this business, we're always focused on business growth and income. And at that point, I had kind of changed some of my dynamics. Of course, I wanted an income, but that wasn't the most important to me. I had achieved a certain level of success that I felt compared to family members and my peer group and so forth was well beyond what I thought I'd ever be at. So I felt very lucky, but from a spiritual standpoint and a family standpoint, I felt really bankrupt. And so I had gone to that meeting looking for answers in order to say, how can I transition this business into something different so that I maybe, and I don't know exactly what, I just remember saying, I'm going to go to this and I have to find something that can help me figure out, again, do I get out of this, or is there something I can just do different to make this business work for me? Right. And that's when we had sat down. I remember specifically you going through, and I think that year you closed, 280 transactions. The whole time, all you were going through is like, you were going through, the tool set that we have as far as who had made calls in and were they answered, and you're going through these things as we're talking. And it was just a different way of thinking about the business. And it really just changed my mindset of, again, going from an independent operator to running a business.
Yeah. So in the business, what specific problems were you facing back then? So it wasn't systems based, and talk about what the weekly schedule would look like, the amount of hours. What were the specific problems you were facing?
Yeah. So we never had problem with like leads coming in. That was never an issue, right? We knew how to, we had good sphere of influence. We had good leads that were coming in. I had a prospecting schedule that I had always followed, since even still to this day that we follow. But the pain points is that I felt like I had to take everything. And so my day started, obviously early with workouts and so forth, but I would be leaving before my kids were up and getting home when they were already in bed. And then I'd also be working all the weekends. And so come Monday, dude, you'd already worked a 20-hour month, you know what I mean? Or a 20-day month, because you really never took a day off. Sundays, I'm pretty busy just as far as because I'm involved with, Sunday obligations. And so, that wasn't a day off really, because it was like, get up and, get the kids ready and do all that stuff that typically takes a long time. So, but where I was is, I really felt, and hopefully I'm not going off target here, but basically where I was at is I just didn't have any time. I was really spent, and it just was really aging me. And mentally, physically, and just emotionally, I didn't have that drive to keep growing the business, because I knew if I drove it more, like, it was going to cause me more pain than it would pleasure.
And what did it mean, for the business and for your personal life? What did it mean to get you back on the right track?
So after we were able to make some changes, it was just amazing to be able to get that valued time back. What I have found is and I don't know if this is an unfortunate thing, but now I continue to chop even more off to see, like, how can I get even more time? How can I even get a little more time? Right. So even like today, I worked at home till 12:30 because I set everything up and I let everybody know, like, hey, I'm working on this and this and this and this, and I'm just going to be at home working on it. And so it didn't really make a difference, but yeah, I was hung out with my wife and talked to her, and she was doing other stuff too. But it's just different sometimes when you have that little bit of a break, because then you start getting fulfilled and it starts changing your dynamics of your life, where I hate to say it, you're living more of a healthy life and you're living life, as opposed to, you're just grinding it out. You're just pushing a rock uphill and it just never ends,
And so I may get you a little uncomfortable here. You shared you were at our first ever intensive workshop, and
Yeah.
it was probably spring 2014, and there was only like 12 people in the room, and I think we had 220 at our last intensive. You shared a story that I've never forgotten, and it's like the essence of every traditionally successful real estate agent is the essence of that story. Do you remember that story?
Was it the kite?
The kite story.
Yes.
It's not, maybe you tell a story, maybe you don't, but can you tell like the essence of like what was so screwed up back then for you?
So yeah. So my little girl, Riley, is 10 years old now. She was probably 5 years old at the time. Loved Barbie. For some reason, we happened to be at Walmart, which we're never at Walmart, but we were. And there was a Barbie kite. And I remember saying, oh my gosh, I'm like, Riley, look at this. And she was so excited. And she's like, oh my gosh, should we go fly it? And I'm like, totally. So I buy the kite, took it. And I'm like, kites are big and stuff. So I kept it in the garage, didn't really bring it in the house. And I remember saying, hey, we're going to take this out. And I remember her just saying, hey, can we take out the kite? And I'm like, well, we sure can. I go, but I got to go to these appointments and I got to do this. And I remember just, week after week, she's like, hey, can we take out the kite? And some days the wind wasn't blowing. And, so there was always something. And then what happened is, one day I go into the garage and I'm looking at this kite, and it was full of dust. And I look outside and there was snow on the ground, and it had probably gone by 6 months, and I never went out and flew that kite. And so as a father, I felt, and I get emotional because I mean, just like you, I go back to that moment and I'm like, I cannot lose these small treasures that I want to build with my family and my children, because essentially I'm doing all of this for them, yet I'm taking everything, all the memories away from myself. And those are just little memories for me that do go deep, because those times, what is it to go fly a kite? What is that, an hour? It's like, you don't have an hour to spend with your 5-year-old, and now she's 10, you know. If I told her to fly a kite, she'd probably tell me maybe after my friends come over, you know what I mean? So it's just interesting. That time is precious. And anyway, I hate that those things happen, but I'm thankful they happened early. So I realized, because I think some people never really get that feeling, and then it's too late. And I think I got that early. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, I think it's more, a symptom of like our industry doesn't really teach us how to move beyond traditional success. Like you hardly learn how to freaking generate a buyer or seller, in real estate school. So there is no roadmap. Let's talk about some of the things we worked on, when we started working together, even if it's like areas of the business or specific tools and systems, maybe a few tools or systems that made the biggest impact in your business.
So, and this is the thing, like, the way the system's built out is really, really comprehensive now. There was just a lot of little things that, like, for one little thing now, there's probably 4, from, start, beginning, end, bonus, you know what I mean? All that stuff. But one very simple one is just having very simple forms in place, such as like an intake form. One of the things that took so much of my time is just speaking with the initial client coming in, spending 30 to 45 minutes, and then doing everything else. And that alone probably eliminated almost a full day of work in a work week by giving permission to a full-time assistant, and truly like an implementer at that time, to be able to move the business. So that little simple thing allowed me so much more, an extra full day to work on the business, that it allowed me to implement a lot more. So very simple, but it had very broad strokes in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing is really just having a system in place for a team structure of weekly accountability. And so having that cadence of weekly meetings, whereas before it was just like, hey, let's just meet and go over a few things, having a process of, this is what we're talking about, here's what we planned on from last week, and did they get done? What do we need to work on this week? And making sure it's like on time, ends on time, rating the meeting, and making sure that they're productive and move the business forward, versus let's just talk to talk because we haven't seen each other in a week, right? That really made it so that the mission and what we're accomplishing and the growth and the trajectory would change. And, that's how we ended up going from, I think when we met, I think that year I alone had closed 67 that year. We got together, I think right after, it's almost this time of year, I think. It was almost like right after New Year and whatever. And then we went from 67 to 101, 151 to 206 to 207. And we did go back this year, but I mean, we did lose 9 members in 6 months. And frankly, I ran all my numbers and I was off 90,000 in total revenue, which to me personally was only about 30 to 35,000. So I only made 35,000 less with, if you think about, 40, 50 transactions difference, right? So to me, that was really, I guess one of the messages I have is sometimes bigger and grander sometimes is fantastic, but we weren't producing. Like those 9 people, if they were producing, the business would have been completely different. Half of them went and got jobs, and I felt bad, not bad for them, but I supported them saying, I understand that real estate isn't for you. Like we tried, right? It is what it is. And so we learn as we grow. The third thing that I was thinking about is just, and this sounds simple because I think you and I really appreciate different mentors that we've had along the way that are, their podcasts and different things, but really just the importance of these 3, 5, and more important, 10-year visions. Because it really makes you think about, where am I headed in the future? And even though that that just really made things a little bit more crystal clear. One of the things that you had said to me one time is I remember we were writing these goals down, and I felt very much the way, this is probably the year we closed about, I don't know, 100 and, I think it was the year we did about 150 deals. But I was doing everything, okay? And when I say I did everything, I think I closed 97 of those 151, okay? And so I remember us writing our goals, and I was like, dude, I'm having a hard time, because it's like, I want us to grow, but I don't want to sacrifice my family. Like, like it was at this, again, I felt the same way at that moment as I did when we originally met at 47, but now I was doing twice the business, but I had some, people, systems, and marketing in place to assist us. And I think what happened was, as you said to me, and I don't want to botch it, so I just want to make sure I'm saying it right, is you said, the problem is you're designing your business. You need to design your business around your life, not your business around your business. And it really, really made me think like, okay, what do I need to do? And that's when I essentially made sure that we hired a listing partner, and she went out that next year and took 92 listings. I think I did 12 the next year. And my income went down. My income went down $100,000. And that was the biggest, and this sounds so insane as people are growing a business. And if somebody earned $100,000, I remember when I earned my first $100,000, I was so excited, but it was the biggest blessing to lose $100,000. And it's because I got my life back. And that's a really interesting thing. And we did more business, and I had more time and freedom, and I had the ability to just do things with my family I'd never get. And yes, there was different stresses, and it's not easy, and it sounds like it's simple, but that one mindset shift in creating a 3, 5, and 10-year plan was important to know, what did I want out of my life, not just business goals.
Yeah, there's so much in there that's really, really good. The one thing you said, it is a sort of beginning with the end in mind. Like what's the real plan here? I mean, if there's lots of guys that have made billions of dollars, and at the end of their life, they're like, yeah, I did it all wrong. Like I've got a lot of money, but I've failed relationships. I've got multiple marriages. I've got estranged children. I mean, it's not, our beliefs are similar. It's not what we're here to do. We're here to love God, love people, our family first and foremost after God. And so I just think that's super powerful. And, when you say lose $100,000, it's funny because I know your financials, and you just mean relative to the year before.
Yeah.
So, you made a lot of money, and you made a little bit less than a lot of money the next year.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But mentally, like, we do see it as a step back, where it's when you start to measure your growth in multiple areas of your life, it doesn't bother you if you go back, 40 transactions, or, I just worked with another Rebs member to cut out 60 transactions. Like, he knows he's going to sell 60 less. He will make $250,000 more money by selling 60 less homes this year. And traditional success, even in a team environment, is like, no, go after you got to put up the numbers, because everyone's looking at your top numbers, how many homes you've sold. It's like, no, it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it's important because, that one of the things also is, after I think we closed 206 and then we closed 207, we had a chance to have a call. And one of the things that is, as going through my numbers, and I was having a really hard time figuring it out, because there's certain times where you're just like, man, I don't know if my heart's into growing this, because I want to do some other things. And we talked about just other things that I was doing. I mean, now I'm in a master's in real estate development program, because I wanted this growth. And like, I go every Tuesday and Thursday after I eat dinner with my family. And like, I love it. Like, there are just all these things that, like, we're designed to grow. And sometimes I think that we get so pigeonholed in that we have to grow this one thing. And it's like sometimes as people, we just want to grow. I don't know if it's professionally or just networking or whatever, but there's something in us that wants to change. But you had mentioned in our goal setting strategy is like, look, what if your only goal this year was to leave the office earlier, spend more time with your family, and actually take more time off to be with them? What if nothing else changed on your business goals, but that was your only goal? And it just, again, it's so healthy to just be like, in our world, we just think money, income, you look it around. I mean, that's the thing is you and I both know different people that close thousands of deals, thousands, and some of them are healthy and strong, and some of them aren't, right? Some of them have broken parts and some people don't. We all have problems, but my point is that creating and going through a different structure of a program that allows you to think differently about life and business as opposed to pure business development and growth. Because if you don't have the healthy and happy lifestyle, like, this will not change. The business will not grow if you don't have this, because it's just, you'll burn out. You will burn out eventually. If it not now, in a year, 2 years, 5 years. I mean, we have mutual friends that we know that frankly took jobs training in the business, right? Because they're like, I don't want to grow a team. Like, I'm just going to train people. And they became clients of yours, because they're like, I want to figure it out, but it's just like, for now, I'm burned out, and you have to have those two items. Or if you're a producer, right? If you're a producer, then it can be just a challenge, and you need systems and tools around you to assist you and give you leverage.
Yeah, we also know team leaders with big teams in the numbers you talked about that have lost their families.
Oh,
and it's like,
yeah.
gosh, I didn't.
And that's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy. I want you to talk a little bit, because I think it may be interesting for people to hear. As you made that shift to sort of be a little bit more cognizant of the clock at the end of the day, how was it adjusting back into like you being? I remember you telling me that Liz was like, "What are you doing home?"
She still says that too. It's funny, even like, she's like, what are you doing here today? And I'm like, I'm just working from home. I just got to do it. It's funny, right? It's a double-edged sword, you're there and they're like, why are you there? And you're not there. Like, when are you going to come home? But yeah, I remember when I had really 100% stepped out of, and I shouldn't say 100% stepped out of production. I always had my toe dipped in, sometimes I like projects. And so we have like some lot developments and a little commercial property, but we're dealing with, and I don't want to take this away, but we're dealing with business owners, and they're dealing in business hours. And I call them at 5:15 and they're like, look, just call me Monday. We're off the clock and we're going to be back in the office Monday. Those aren't the conversations we typically have with normal buyers and sellers, right? So I'm always doing little things. But when I had 90+% stepped out of production, I really had a hard time wondering, like, what is my purpose? Like, what do I do now? And, it really took me having to throw my hat over the fence. And I'm still that, right? Like, I'm still throw that hat over the fence and say, what is it exactly I want to accomplish? And right now I'm just in this transition of saying, look, I know I need to grow the team with right fit members, with our vision intact, meaning we are not closing transactions just to close deals. It is like, I really want us to have an impact in our community, in our area, the things that we're accomplishing, like people remember that experience at a high level. There's so much change that we've seen in the last 3 to 5 years. And I just feel like there's going to be some really big fallout as far as where people are doing transactions, but they're not doing service. And so how do we find those people? I think it's going to take patience. And I'm silly to think that out of the millions of people that are in our community, there's not 3 to 5 to 10 people that are going to be awesome fits, but it is my job to find them. And so by doing that, I can also accomplish other things that I personally want to accomplish that frankly maybe aren't profitable, right? They're maybe not the best from like, if I sat with a business coach, it'd be like, why are you taking your eye off the ball? And it's like, because I want to grow as a person. So I'm doing other things just to almost well-round myself. You know, some people get up early and do yoga, and other days they do push-ups, right? I think we want variety, we want adventure, and sometimes we just have to introduce other things to our life to make the game a little interesting.
Yeah, I do believe entrepreneurship is an affliction. Like I don't think, and I don't think you can ever cure yourself of it. You know, I think it's just, basically keeping it in check enough where you can, not burn out on other areas of life. You know, when we first got started, we had conversations after that first time we met. Any objections that you sort of had in your mind around like maybe, what I was claiming could happen and then what you've, been able to experience? Any objections that went through your mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a good question. I mean, I never had any objections as far as like, most when somebody deals with a coach, I think that the most question people ask is like, they typically say like, I can't afford it. It's probably number one. Two, I don't have the time. I mean, I'm guessing, right? I'm just thinking what I would assume people would say. And then three, like maybe I'm unable to implement the stuff, right? Maybe those are the things. And I never had that problem personally, but that's because I wasn't concerned about the income. I wasn't concerned. The time was an issue, but I knew I would make the time because I knew I needed a change. So it was very high level as opposed to something on the bottom. But one thing you said to me, where you were, I mean, again, you were selling me, but you weren't selling me because you didn't even have to say it to me, but you're just like, you made the promise of, look, whatever you invest with me, you're going to get 10 times back. And I remember thinking, well, I'm going to do it anyway, whether I get nothing back, because I'm thinking, I just want a change in my business. I don't care if I make more money. I just want more freedom. And truth be told is by creating gaps in the business, created opportunities to grow, which did give truly 10 times the change. And it's funny because I think what I've learned is it only takes one decision to make a massive change in a life. And making that switch allows so much more ability to shift that needle, even in the business side, that you're able to just, the numbers become unfair because you're like, the funny thing is I look at these other businesses over the last year, 18 months, I just find out this business is very hard to duplicate. Like there's really no other business. Like I've everything from, people, and this is on the real estate world too, right? Everything from, you deal with contractors and people that have rentals, you deal with people that have property management, just title companies. I mean, it's just hard to make the margins we make and have the time that we can have. And so I just feel like the grass is not always greener, but sometimes you just have to get down and cut it a little more, Yeah.
And you mentioned, if you're not focused on providing the highest level of buying and selling services to your market, like that's your like fanatical focus, you are going to be displaced in your market, or you'll be working for a real estate team that's doing it the right way.
Absolutely.
So I just think that it is just overlooked by every brokerage, by, even most real estate teams are just a loose collection of agents. So I think that's not that this is a coaching call for anyone listening. It's just worth mentioning. Like if you're not pursuing, like, how do I justify this $15,000 commission to this buyer if the buyer had to stroke a check for me?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're not thinking about that as a team leader, you're going to be out of business.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the things I did with my team is I gave each of them $50. And I said, listen, you're going to go to the number one customer service business in the country. And so I made him go to Zappos. And I said, and this is what you're going to do. You've got to have 3 questions about the shoes you're going to buy. Then you're going to call them back on another day and ask them 3 questions about their culture. And then you're going to go back and you're going to ask 3 questions online. And we're all going to come together and we're going to go through this whole, everything that you asked, what you learned and what you felt not only applies to our business, but also what are your takeaways? And we sat in a room for hours and went through like, what is it that we learned, good and the bad? And then we applied it to our business and created a customer care plan. And it's like, what is our customer care plan and what are we about? And it was nice as me, where you feel like you're the driving force. Like you have to do everything. Nobody else is going to stay. I'm the only one that's going to stay around, right? And it was amazing to have the team tell me what they wanted this customer care plan to be, because as new people come in, it's their customer care plan, not mine. Yeah. What was interesting is last week I had a chance to go and listen to an hour. A guy from Ritz-Carlton spoke, and he spoke about their customer service plan for an hour. And it was amazing, some of those details in our customer care plan that fit in line with exactly what they do for their clients. And so it made me happy. It made me proud. I mean, those are the types of things you want. You want people to have a good experience. You want to create a completely different experience. And I think that's the thing, as an independent person, I do remember people saying like, whoa, like, don't even think about going over there. You need to go talk to Justin because he's going to do this, right? And those things can be taught, but to make it into a system and make it repeatable, people just have to know exactly what's the mindset around it, and then everybody will gather around it. In fact, case in point, there's a lady, this is just a funny little thing, like this wasn't planned at all. So for example, we have our listing packet going out, and so our listing coordinator had a very long conversation with this lady. Normally it's 10 to 15 minutes and ended up being an hour. So just because, she met with her, she's like, hey, she wrote her just a thank you card and put it in the listing packet just to say, thank you so much for talking with me. It was a pleasure speaking with you. I'm so looking forward to like getting your property on the market. Just something simple and easy that was not me. It was part of the customer care plan because she had a longer conversation than normal and she wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny you mentioned Ritz-Carlton. That's our goal as a real estate team, is to be the Ritz-Carlton of real estate. As we wrap up here, tell me, what do you think, what's been your favorite part of Real Estate B School?
So I will say the number one thing I will tell you, now it goes through phases, right? Currently, my favorite thing is the community, the people I can connect with. Like there's certain people that you just see as your brothers and sisters in the business, right? Where like you are peers, you've gone through the pains and the struggles, and like the only thing I can relate it to is I lived out of the country for a couple of years doing a service mission. And like those people are your bros, right? Like they know what you went through. And so when you talk about stuff, they're like, oh yeah, that was horrible, and you laugh about it because they get it. So when you're dealing with people at that level, you can have the different conversations, and it gets amplified by 10 because now you typically are an island at a certain level in the business, right? Because you have these percentages where people just start falling off. What are the numbers? 87% of the agents fall off after 5 years, right? And so the people that end up getting not only longer time in the business, but doing it at a higher level, like at a million agents in the market, there's very few that you can connect with. So having that ability to reach out to folks and have a conversation, even outside of, your program, where you're just like, I hate to say it, like there's guys that I'll call and say, hey, we'll just have quick conversations about not even business, right? You're just talking about, hey, when you take out your kids and whatever, somebody was telling me about something they were doing with their kids. And it's like, hey, I want to know more about that. Let's call me. I want to go
Yeah.
over it,
Yeah.
because they fought a fight that you're just trying to, you connect with.
Yeah, it's probably the thing I'm most proud of about our coaching business is the community. It's people that want more than just money and number one and, just growth for growth's sake. Let me ask you last question. Who would you recommend Real Estate B School to and why?
I would recommend it to, there's always a next level. So there's always like this growth plateau, next level. And so I would say it's that person looking for the next level. I would say the next part of it would be the person that's maxed out. They're feeling like I want the next level, but I don't know how to get there. Because that now they can't lean on just their self anymore. They need tools, systems, people, marketing. They need to leverage themselves in order to grow.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And I'll end with this, it really is, if you've achieved, that traditional success and it's just worth shit and your life is sort of beside, it's just not looking like you thought it would. Maybe the money's good, but your stress levels are through the roof. You're missing out time with your kids. Your spouse is pissed off at you. I mean, that's when you really need to reach out and just have a conversation with us. It's realestatebschool.com. Business growth strategy session is your next step. Like Justin said, it's the point at which you've exceeded what you could do alone. It's the business you've chosen, the industry you've chosen, and there's just that next level. We've helped take agents from 70, 80 hours a week making 250 a year to working 35 to 40 hours a week making 7 figures net a year. So hours and money and stress aren't always linked together. So Justin, this has been awesome, brother. I've got so much love and respect for you. And, you've hung in there and trusted us to come alongside you at, like you said, at different points of your journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for doing this.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.